President Trump has now authorized the military to assume control of federal lands along the U.S.-Mexico border, specifically the Roosevelt Reservation. This will be a huge escalation in the war on illegal aliens, drugs, and crime coming across the borders. This is a post about this very issue on the New York Post. It's by Victor Nava. It's titled, "Trump Authorized Military to Take Control of Federal Land Along Southern Border." President Trump issued a memorandum Friday authorizing the military to take control of federal lands along the southern border to combat illegal immigration and drug smuggling. Our southern border is under attack from a variety of threats. The complexity of this current situation requires that our military take a more direct role in securing our southern border than in the recent past, Trump wrote in the memo issued to Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins. Now, Trump directed his cabinet members to take all appropriate actions to provide for the use and jurisdiction by the Department of Defense over federal lands that are reasonable necessary to enable military activities directed in this memorandum. The president listed border barrier construction and emplacement of detention and monitoring equipment as the activities that the military will engage in along the U.S.-Mexico border, but later noted that Hegseth may determine those military activities that are reasonably necessary and appropriate to accomplish the mission assigned, meaning there may be more to this than what the eye can see. Now, the mission is to defend the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the U.S., about time, as detailed in Trump's Day 1 executive order on border security. Trump's memo allows the military to operate on the Roosevelt Reservation, a 60-foot wide strip of land along the southern border that extends from California to Texas, but excludes federal Native American reservations. In carrying out activities under this memorandum, members of the Armed Forces will follow rules for the use of force prescribed by the Secretary of Defense. Trump further directed Hegseth to take all steps necessary to protect and maintain the areas where troops will be present as if they were military installations, including by restricting access to those areas. Under the phased implementation of the land takeover, the Trump administration will initially implement this memorandum on a limited sector of federal lands designated by the Secretary of Defense, according to the memo. But that means that it will likely expand. Within 45 days, here we go, of the date of this memorandum, the Secretary of Defense shall assess this initial phase. At any time, the Secretary of Defense may extend activities under this memorandum to additional federal lands along the southern border in coordination with the Secretary of Homeland Security, the Assistant to the President and Homeland Security Advisor, and other executive departments and agencies as appropriate. Now, there are several reasons why this move by Trump is all important for the next phase of securing the border permanently. In an interview recently, Senior Advisor to U.S. Customs and Border Protection Ron Vitiello discussed what extra penalties for those who break into the country and cross this military installation land would entail. He said not only will they be breaking federal law by coming into the country illegally, but they'll also be trespassing on a military installation. We're going to mark that land out, so when people cross the border in that area, they'll not only be breaking federal law by coming into the country illegally, but they'll also be trespassing on a military installation, thereby bringing more deterrence to the party, if you will, that the Justice Department will file charges referred by CBP, by the Border Patrol, for holding these people to account for entering the country illegally and trespassing on a military base. Now, this is important because trespassing on a U.S. military installation can lead to things like $5,000 fines for a Class B misdemeanor and imprisonment up to 6 months. And oftentimes you get a combination of both the fine and the imprisonment depending on the circumstances. And get this, if the trespassing involves additional offenses like, say, damaging property or intent to commit a felony like, say, drug running or breaking into the country, penalties can escalate. So all of this is wonderful news. However, I also think there is potentially more to this as well. Now, this is just my theory here, but the Trump directive, which is focused on surveillance, infrastructure, and detention of illegal aliens for trespassing, is a good start, but I don't think that's all there's to this. Don't forget that Donald Trump has already designated the cartels within Mexico and beyond as terrorist organizations, which is good because that is what they are. They murder at will, they use terror often to control people, including governments. Because Donald Trump labeled these people as terrorist organizations, Thanks to the 2001 authorization for use of military force, which was done after 9/11, he has the legal authority now to use deadly force, specifically to use the military to wage strikes against the cartels, even if they are in Mexico, whether President Sheinbaum likes it or not. And naturally, the stooge, President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, will not like Donald Trump doing this. She has done everything in her power to protect her precious cartels and is fiercely opposed to any U.S. military incursion into her country, calling it a violation of sovereignty, even though her government is essentially allowing the cartels to constantly invade the U.S. So I say, who cares what this Mexican president thinks? Her nation is utterly corrupted and co-opted by the cartels. It is a festering evil pulsating inside every government institution throughout her country. In fact, Claudia Sheinbaum herself was mentored by the previous president, AMLO, a man who signaled that his country had surrendered control to the cartels by launching a policy called hugs, not bullets, effectively ending any real military and police action against this evil within his country. And she is one and the same as he is. She even campaigned on continuing his corruption, his hugs not bullets type policies within Mexico. She is nothing more than the cartel stooge, a willing tool who will keep the evil comfortably flowing both in and out of her country. See, it is estimated now that the cartels in Mexico generate over $21 billion a year annually from U.S. drug sales, and no one now in Mexico is trying to stop them. This is why the Mexican government will not act decisively against them. They are in bed with the cartels, and Donald Trump is having none of it. He is serious about wiping this evil off the map, just as he did to ISIS in his first term. And so I believe that this is part of Trump's plan here. This is part of his memorandum. Militarizing federal lands like the Roosevelt Reservation could end up being a staging ground for anti-cartel operations, not just border security.
To the cartels, all options are on the table. We will secure our border and our men and women guarding it, and we're proud to be here.
The Pentagon's deployment of 1,500 troops shortly after Trump announced his foreign terrorist organization designation earlier this year, and the presence of naval assets like guided missile destroyers in the region, which were spotted earlier this month, suggest to me that there are preparations underway for something much larger. And Trump's request for a report by April 20th of this year on invoking the Insurrection Act also hints at contingency planning for escalated operations, although again, I'm just speculating at this point. But it wouldn't surprise me to hear in the near future that all of this was a prelude to striking directly at the cartels in Mexico. And if or when that happens, instead of complaining, I think President Sheinbaum should be thanking Donald Trump for cleaning up the evil within her country, for fixing her mess. Of course, she may not be happy about this because my guess is she's part of them as well.